Hello listeners, happy holidays. I hope the end of 2020's been better than the start of it anyway. We have 2021 to look forward to. The podcast is about to celebrate its 5th year, and we're going to keep on diving deep into Jurassic World 1 minute at a time. But before we start back up on that, here's a little repeat episode we've done towards the end of the Lost World Minute, where we had a bit of a look at the use of the worker village in Sliders TV series from the mid-90s. We are doing this because next week we'll be doing the December issue of Jurassic Minutes, where we'll be looking back at Gangland with the use of the operations building in that, as well as the full history of the Jurassic backlot from those early days in 1996 all the way up till last year, 2019, where what was left of the set imploded and was bulldozed. So re-familiarise yourselves with this episode and the Slider stuff. Next week we're back to discuss Gangland, a music video that I didn't know existed, shot on the stairs of the Embryonics Administration building, and some other neat little behind the scenes videos as well, showing the worker village and the Embryonics Administration building in all their VHS glory. Podcast we're doing 997 sequel Jurassic Park, 1 minute at a time. I'm Brad.
I'm Dave.
And today we're not here to discuss minute 95, we're here to have a little bit of a bonus show looking back at the worker village from the Lost World and its appearance in in a TV series called Sliders. For those that don't know, Sliders, back in the late 90s, you had a few of these sci-fi type shows come up, Sequest and that sort of stuff as well. Sliders, I think it started...
Stargate?
Stargate was another one. Had a little bit more of a longer running time than some of the other shows, though. I think Sliders got to season 5 in the end, but back in 1997, after the filming of The Lost World had finished, the worker village set stayed up for a little bit longer. It was mostly deforested. It was all the vegetation was removed from set, especially all the stuff around the fence and the pipes and that in the boneyard, but during presumably late 1997, Sliders were in season 4, and they had some big money issues, and most of the series, or most of that season 4, was all shot on the Universal backlot. And luckily for us, we have 3 episodes from the end of season 4 where they shot on that worker village set, each sort of showcasing different parts of the set. Episode 14, Mother and Child, which we'll get on to first, aired December 7th, 1998, and that sort of was mostly inside the operations building. So we just go through basically what sort of happens in the scene. The actors sort of run around the front veranda of the operations building from the helipad end and run into the lobby of the operations building. And again, just the set in the middle of the day, sometime after the Lost World's film, but all the moss is still there on the glass. It's just like they're on sauna. Again, they didn't have a lot of money, so they've done very few alterations to the set whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, even some of the prop debris, actually a lot of the prop debris is still hanging around. I mean, you still have the prop grass and dried tumbleweed there that was used in the Lost World.
Yep. It's interesting here too. There's no tree beside the helipad. I noticed when they run around the front. That I suppose too, being 97 compared to now. Now that helipad's nearly completely engulfed by the big tree. It's just grown so much over the years. But those egg motif doors we've seen in the film have been removed. I wonder if they're in a producer's garage or man cave, or hopefully they haven't been destroyed.
Sure. I don't know. I mean, I know that they were there on the backlot for a little bit, just because we had pictures of them post-filming.
Yeah.
Of that still there. But, unfortunately, it's just not seen here.
Yeah. And I love, too, when they run through those open doorways at the front, you got a shot of the roof and just how the roof curves up from the front of the building. that whole rear wall where the mural was, there's some real large windows above it that sort of let light in from the back to light the building as well, and what look like bars on the roof as well. It's interesting you can't see the tower at all. It's sort of just offset behind, but they sort of run into the lobby and turn left at the doors. And I'd always thought they'd run to the end of the operations building. We're looking out towards the grass and the edge of the set, but they're actually in that partition in the lobby that sort of goes through into that next section. So we don't see what's there until Jurassic Park 3, unfortunately, when they the set's redone and the Kirby's and that walk in there.
And that kind of pile of cushions there. I mean,
yeah,
was that the chairs that we saw in the movie?
I wonder if that's just the chair imploded into a heap.
Yeah.
Because the reception desk and all that's been removed. You've just got the large concrete wall that the mural was painted on.
Well, the mural was probably glued on, because if you look at the wall where the mural was, you can see flecks of paint. I mean, big chunks of paint missing, as if they'd torn down the mural.
Oh, yeah,
you know?
It does too, yep. But I just love here too, like, even just the vines and that hanging from the rafters, like, being able to see up and more of the roof structure. Obviously stuff left behind from the Lost World filming that wasn't cleaned up. So whether it's real vine or it'd have to be fake vine.
Yeah.
Because it's still sort of holding its colour. It's got that greeny texture.
Yeah, I'd assume it's real vine. I mean, there's nothing there to suggest at all that they're fake. I mean, they're real vine.
Yeah, there'd have to be some sort of
I'd say they're fake.
Yeah, potted plant or something. But we also get a look here too at the doors and the glass wall partition for the communication centre's still in there. And again, sort of just all the mouldy blinds and that on the windows as the camera's looking into the building. But the cast sort of run towards the rear of the building on the opposite side of the mural wall that the helipad's on, and we get a nice reveal of a hallway that runs the entire length of the back of the operations building again. And just like the front, you've got those floor-to-ceiling glass windows, which this is part of the set we never saw. We only sort of seen that back corner where the door goes out onto the staircase for the helipad when Ian and crew are running through, which we get in minute 95. But
it's funny that they didn't. It's not like Spielberg knew exactly which parts of the building he wanted to use and which parts he wasn't going to use, so they dressed everything.
Yeah.
And you look at the long shot here of the hallway, you can see entire pieces of the fake bush and brush that they used out front on the steps. The entire thing's dressed. There's flecks of mold and broken glass. And then you look at when they run up the back side of it along this hill, there's more set dressing, you know? I mean, they dressed the entire thing.
Yeah, it wasn't just a facade like the visitor centre was in Jurassic Park with the external sets of that. It's just they've done the whole set and made it so they can film anywhere. And I just love, like, even we get a low shot here as they're running past the camera, and there's again those bars on the windows of the roof, which must be just sort of the roof styling, because there's no bars on the big glass windows where the animals could actually come in. I don't think that's defensive design at all, but it's just something that they can sort of hang. It's easier for them to hang vines and that off bars than it is off broken sugar glass or what have you, because the weight would probably break the glass more. But but then again, as you said, like as we get to the end of the scene, and it's only a 17-second bit in this episode, there's a ramp in that runs off the veranda of the operations building off to the hill on the side, just whether it's a fire escape or just going off to another structure that was never part of the set itself, something that might have been made for the larger set before the script was cut down and San Diego was added too.
Yeah, because the operations building is one of the first things they started building when they started constructing the entire thing. You can see behind the scenes photos in the making of book where they started digging out the pond there and adding the filtration system and the pylons and stilts that the building would eventually sit on before they started adding anything else.
Yeah, you've posted those pictures to the Facebook group recently.
Yeah, I did.
And yeah, you can sort of see across where the rest of the village would be towards the Psycho house that's on the end there. and it possibly might have been demolished or moved just to make room for that larger village set.
Which honestly would have been disappointing.
Oh yeah, yep, definitely.
I mean, that's a piece of Hollywood history that they would have had to tour. But yeah, I mean, imagine how we feel that Spielberg's War of the Worlds set covered up the plane crash set, covered up the Jurassic Park 3 Jurassic Park 3 embryonics facility set. Imagine how horror fans would feel, and as a horror fan myself, I know that I would be disappointed to see the set torn down.
Yeah, and even just past that set down the hill a little way is the Bates Motel set and all that as well. And Sliders actually filmed an episode in there as well. I noticed when watching through the season. But yeah, and it sort of makes you wonder if that War of the Worlds set and plane crash area hadn't been built, and that Jurassic Park 3 area was still on the main tour, whether it would have been left to rot and decay as much as it has.
I don't think it would have, just because it would have been a noticeable and prominent part of the set there, and they just never cleaned it up. They never needed to use that lot, I guess. Universal never needed to use the lot, so the War of the Worlds set just sits there decaying, and the Jurassic Park 3 set sits there decaying more.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And we'll get to in the next episode just how well they built the sets. This being obviously probably a year after the end of filming for The Lost World, where they're running around. It's interesting at the start of the scene when they're running across the front of the operations building. You can clearly hear that they're running on timber. You can hear the footfalls as they're running. It's not concrete. But just the fact that sort of these sets are still, or here a year later, and then even before Jurassic Park 3 was filmed, sort of years later, where the sets are still there and relatively in the same condition as when they were constructed. Yet, and it's probably mainly just the environment, but like 10 months after Jurassic Worlds finished filming, the Indominus Rex enclosure was falling apart just because the plywood and that was the moisture and the tropics were just destroying that set.
Oh yeah. Well, of course, also what probably also saved the set was the fact that Southern California is a much drier environment than Hawaii.
Yep.
So they don't get much rain even throughout the year, even in their supposed wet season that sometimes never even comes. They just don't get a lot of rain, and so the sets are sitting out there as if they would in a desert, which Los Angeles County essentially once was. It was like sub-desert land,
Yep.
Shrubland land.
And it's exactly why the RV was able to sit out in the open for 20 plus years, or 20 years, without completely imploding as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And even that original Jurassic Park Velociraptor cage that's out there is just a wooden structure, and it's still, yes, it needs a bit of a sand and a paint, but the basic structure's still there and sound, so...
I remember seeing a image, it was a Winchester repeater rifle found in the Mojave Desert, which is outside of L.A.
Yep.
And it had been sitting there, I think, since like the 1880s, and it was of course not in fireable condition because the sand just had corroded the pieces, but it was still in recognizable condition. It didn't have any rust. The wood was brittle as to be expected, but it was still held, And so, I mean, that really attests to the kind of environment that a dry environment allows for the conditions to be just right to allow preservation of these sets and props and stuff.
Yeah, and I think we've discussed it before when we'll talk about the RV, just like the aeroplane graveyards and that are out in the desert, just for that simple fact they can park planes there and they can survive pretty much wholly intact for any given years until they need the parts or get something back into commission.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. But basically that's all from episode 4, which is called Mother and Child. I just love, like, even sort of looking in here, the just that rear wall that the mural was on, just having that slight curve in it. It's not just a flat back wall of the lobby. and is still there in Jurassic Park 3 with the new InGen logo and that on it, which is great. And I just, with all these glass windows, I would have just loved to see this building when it was brand new.
Yeah.
Back during it was operating. But
Jurassic Park prequel would have always been interesting to see. Of course, that's probably not going to happen now with the Jurassic World trilogy, but it would have been interesting to see had they not done the Jurassic World trilogy, if they decided to go full Lucas with it and do a prequel trilogy.
Yeah, well, there's been some praise and some disappointment with Spielberg's latest film, Ready Player One, that's out at the moment.
Yeah, true.
Some people are liking it, some people are saying his career's over. Well, that's a bit harsh, but he might have to go back to something he knows and revisit the world. But he's working along with Trevor Owen, that, so he's still here, even though his name's only on the executive producer card. But yeah, anything else on the operations building side of things you want to talk about before we get in the next episode?
No, I will talk about how when I first started doing my map, one of the things that was confusion to me was the actual shape of the building, because a lot of times, a lot of reconstructions, even going as far as Trespasser, shows the roof having a more squared off front. It doesn't, in the movie, it actually angles from the front towards the back.
Yeah, it sort of curves back. It's sort of low above the front wall, then sort of goes back and up at the same time.
Yeah. And those two kind of bars, I'm not really sure what else to call them. They're like giant I-beams that stick off the roof.
Yeah.
That's almost decoration. They're connecting points for the roof. The roof kind of curves back towards the back as it runs along the front from that point.
Yeah, that's one thing with even it's in the concept art too. Just like you've got those massive big beams that sort of run back, pretty much either side of the lobby, and it almost looks like massive hydraulic rams that are sit there. Like I remember back once I seen the film before it came out on DVD or VHS, just wondering if there was some sort of function where the roof actually lifted, like pivoted at the front.
Yeah, they do look like that, don't they?
Yeah. It's just a weird industrial looking design for the front of the building.
I think that's kind of purposeful, just because, I mean, the entire thing does have this somewhat of an industrialist look, but at the same time, you can see that it has remnants of the Jurassic Park look as well, like in the doors.
Yeah, yep.
You know?
And even with that curved roof, like we see it in a couple of these other episodes, the exterior shot of the front, and just it looks like there's just sort of like curved roofing iron on the roof, and it's missing in parts, obviously because of the hurricane. But yeah, I don't know, I got lost on that one. All right, going into the second episode, episode 15, Net Worth, aired on the 11th of January 1999. So starting to get a good few years after the Lost World finished filming. Again, air date is probably a lot longer than the actual shooting date. This is probably all shot the same month, but at minute 09:19 we get our this is when you Google sliders and the Lost World, this people running through the fence and along the skeleton of piping that we see in the film for the geothermal power plant. It's pretty much the one that is easy to find photos of, but I love how the shot opens. We're looking through the fence along that rib cage of piping, and the apatosaur skeleton is still there. In location.
Still with chunks of meat on it, too.
Yeah, yep.
But interesting enough, I think at this point, the worker village has started becoming a kind of a leftovers junkyard for Universal for the Lost World. Because I know that a lot of photos from this point on, they started storing like the giant the giant 76 ball that was from the mainland scene in this spot. And they also started cramming hunters' vehicles into this area as well.
Yeah, yep. There's I think I talked about it a little while ago when I was trying to find out what those yellow construction vehicles were in the set. A lot of visitor photos and that from back in 97, 98 of the Universal backlot tour and just watching hours and hours of video. And at one point the tour did go down the main street and through the set, but that was once the fence and gates were removed. After that too, it sort of just went around past the Psycho house and completely sort of missed it and went by, but the tour guides were actually still calling out that over there's the set for The Lost World, and you could see some of the InGen vehicles parked over there. And as you said, just pretty much like the dumping ground, sort of that vacant block or vacant lot where stuff was abandoned and left, because even like that 76 ball here in the next episode, we actually get the trampled radar dish from the InGen camp, and a lot of the crates and stuff like that is just all sort of dumped and litters the main street. It's not open and easy to see everything as much as it is in the film. Even though from behind the scenes and set photos, particularly of the one the fan that visited there sometime later and took all the photos, you could still see that Main Street was open and clear, and stuff was just sort of stacked up against the front of the garage and that sort of thing. But
it was actually because of those photos that for the longest time I had mistakenly had the 76 ball next to the gas station, because I mean I saw it there, and even though we never really got a good angle of that one spot in the movie, so it wasn't until I went back and watched the movie I'm like, oh, never mind, let me erase that.
But also love here too, as they're sort of climbing through the fence and over that concrete bottom structure that the fence posts go into. You can see there's still the large boulders out there too, near the skeleton, and some dead trees.
Yeah, you can see a dead palm frond that looks like it was actually a set piece. It wasn't actually a piece of palm frond. It looks like had been a piece of dead palm frond that they had spray painted brown and left there, you know?
Yeah, yep. And we're just looking at I just got a low quality one here for us to sort of look through, but I'll get the now I know sort of the time dates and that, I'll get and try and rip it in a bit higher definition. We'll get some screen caps of this stuff onto the various social media so you can see what we're talking about. But they sort of run through the general power plant or geothermal area, which I reckon this is the geothermal power plant. I don't think there's another structure outside the fence where there's another building with the turbine in it.
Yeah, there had been speculated for a long time on Jurassic Park Legacy.
Yeah. That
there had been, in fact, a larger turbine and plant somewhere outside the village.
Because there's a lot of the structures in here it sort of leans more towards a refinery look, but there's pipes here that have got sort of heat insulation and that wrapped around them, like the very hot pipes. In the next episode, we're actually going to see one of the villains shoot one of those ribcage pipes and steam bellows out now. We'll get to that when we get there. Of course, it's not a practical plant, but there's just a lot here, and we've seen very little of all this stuff at night time. We just sort of seen the basic outline when they entered the village, but there's pipes running along the ground, there's pipes going into the ground, which possibly, as we discussed in an earlier minute, maybe that there's a subterranean part to it as well.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I want to say that as far as 2012, they'd included, like, even within the village, there had been a proposed power plant on the maps that Jurassic Park Legacy was making. And it wasn't really until I came along and I asked, what's the evidence for this? And they told me, well, there's none. And I said, well, should it be there? And they said, not really. So I started erasing it. I just erased it. Never. It was not there. It's not there. You know.
Yeah. And as
you can't speculate on things that aren't there.
And as you sort of were saying before, for the operations building, they dressed the whole set. If something was supposed to be there, it would have been there, for the most part, anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, yes, some of it was abbreviated and shortened down when they added San Diego to the whole mix. But for the most part, everything here is here. Because I love here too, they sort of run in through the fence, follow some pipes and go around between the pipes and the kiln shed. And there's a shot here of that lower section of the kiln shed, and you can see the boarding house roof and the there's a rear staircase that goes up to the second story. It pretty much mirrors the street side as well, and you can just see how much wider than the kiln shed the boarding house is, and how much of a bigger structure it is.
And actually, that was something that didn't even get added to my map until I went back and started watching these episodes. So I'm like, oh, look at this. This is here, and this is here, and this is here. And that was all there when they built the village for the movie. So it wasn't like they added that for these episodes, because this was low budget at this point, you know? I mean, there was like, that looks like there was a little prop wall of some sort that they kind of like leaned against the kiln shed, but yeah. They really didn't add anything to the worker village that wasn't already there.
Yeah, well, that's, again, because of funding. But they sort of run around behind the kiln shed, and we get the rear of the boarding house underneath that staircase, with some massive chunks missing. It's everyone's seen the sort of on-set photos of the boarding house from the street side, and just the fact that there's large sections of it missing. And here, sort of around the back again, they sort of dress the back of the set to have this large hole on the ground level at least as well, where we sort of get inside, and it's sort of, again, just a dumping ground with there's barrels and some debris in there.
We also never see the side of the boarding house front in the movie, you know? So we don't know that any of this is even there when watching the movie.
The spray paint on the wall, I don't know if that was vandals after the fact or if it was something for production, but there's not a lot more happens here. But one thing I wanted to bring up, the wall that sort of faces the kiln shed, we know there's that little abridged structure that Sarah rolls through to make her escape from the raptors. It looks like that continues out to the edge of the boarding house, then down past the kiln shed, and the whole back of the kiln shed's got that undercover area. Because we see it here, and in the next minute when we get a sort of street view of the kiln shed, you can see there's a little bit of a lean-to on that on the piping side as well. Like there's a sort of veranda all the way around. And sort of what makes me think about it more so is just from the film where Sarah's hanging off the boarding house roof and the raptors below. There's no edge to that structure. It sort of keeps on going out to the side of the boarding house as well, that she falls onto, and the raptors down below standing on. And then also when she falls to the ground, sort of puts her back up against the kiln shed, and the raptors are rolling back and forth. Twice, or at one stage, the two raptors, while they're fighting, their tails disappear around the corner of the kiln shed, and then another time their heads do as well, which means that roof structure goes around behind the kiln shed as well, and doesn't just drop off. Which could also mean when the raptors kicked out that rear window by Kelly, it falls through that roof structure, and that's why there's a light on the ground beside it with the debris.
That's a good point. Yeah. That
light could have been under that veranda area behind the kiln shed, and it's fallen down to the ground as the raptor's fallen through the roof. Because it's only a tight shot of that raptor on the ground. If it was back from like the window height, you might have been looking down through the hole in that roof to the raptor lying on the ground, kicking and screaming. But it's just something that wasn't filmed that way, so we just never know. But that's my evidence for that anyway. But yeah, that's all we get of the interior of the boarding house. It sort of looks a lot different here than what we get in the next episode, looking forward at the front section of the boarding house. But yeah,
I want to say that, I mean, we also get a wider shot of that vandalism spray paint. I want to say it's just vandalism. I don't know, it doesn't look like it was anything done for the boarding house itself. You know?
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, we saw what production spray paint on a set looks like with Jurassic World when they had the D-Rex set.
Yeah.
Back when it was, of course, still the D-Rex.
Yeah. I love here too. There's a scene here too, back in the bottom section of the boarding house, where a fight breaks out, and you get to see a lot more of that rear wall against the kiln shed. And again, there's no door there leading into that little structure. So I wonder if it's just an open section that comes out behind the kiln shed. 1726, we cut out to Main Street, and the actors are running from the operations building end of town. Again, as I said before, you can sort of see the corrugation in the front of the operations building in the daylight, and the sections of roof missing.
And then something funny happens here where they knock over a box and it has the engine logo there.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, there's a big green wooden crate here with the engine logo on the side of it.
Yeah.
Which must have been from the engine camp when it was destroyed.
Yeah, I'm sure. I imagine it was. Yeah.
Along with all these big black 200 litre 44 gallon barrels and that are here as well.
Mm-hmm.
We get a good look at the front of the boarding house here as well, with the blazers still parked there with the light pole falling across it.
Yep.
Also interesting here too, there's a quick shot of the window Sarah tumbles out of in minute 95, and it's got two sort of bits of iron or tin bolted across it or nailed across it. I don't know if they wanted to keep people out or what. Or
Probably a possibility.
Yeah, a little bit more set dressing.
Mm-hmm. Just kind of prop that stuff up against the window so people can't get in there, you know?
Yeah, yep.
Because, I mean, it seems like it's an enclosed structure with no kind of pieces or way in or out except for that window. And so if something were to happen, you don't want people to be trapped inside there without a way out, you know?
Yeah. And when this scene ends, they sort of run through the fence beside where the gate would be. And it's got a large section of, looks like roofing iron again here, making a warp, which makes me wonder if they were if there was something outside, or they didn't want you to see the rest of the studio.
I think that was the wall I mentioned earlier that they built specifically for this scene, you know?
Yeah, because in the next...
like they propped it up against the fencing, you know?
Yeah, just to sort of show, so you can't see what's beyond the set.
Yeah, exactly. Because, I mean, you go up there and there's somebody's house, I think, up the hill.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, and it's too early for War of the Worlds to be starting to move in there as well.
Yeah, that wasn't until 2005.
Yeah.
They haven't even done Jurassic Park 3 on this set yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that's that episode net worth. Anything else on that you want to talk about before we get into the final? The final and maybe the better episode. It's got the most in it.
I think we're good.
All right.
Wait, hold on. You know, the shot here of the guy getting blown up and thrown across the boxes.
Yep.
For some reason, I want to say that was in one of the... I think that was in the season 3 or 4 opening... I want to say season 4 opening of South Park.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know why, but I do want to say that was in that. that shot specifically. It was just an amalgamation of various action shots.
Yep.
You know.
I'll have to rewatch that now. You got me thinking. All right, and finally, season 4, episode 12, The Dying Fields, which aired in August of '98, has a couple more scenes sort of filmed inside on the main street and in the front of the boarding house. As it sort of opens, we get the cast walking past the gas station, and again, just stacks and stacks of crates and tyres and barrels, just to try and limit your view of the area. But we get a good shot here of the satellite dish leaning up against a crate that was trampled from the Lost World.
Yeah, there was another thing in my map that I included because I first saw it, but it's not actually there in the movie. You know?
No. No, again, just adding to the dump yard. But it's also interesting here too, where they seem to have just spread a small gravel across the entire main street.
Yeah, they did.
Because we know from those behind the scenes, or after the film finished, that there was actually a paved road leading down the middle. And now they've sort of got it covered in gravel. But
yeah, it looks like they also stacked a bunch of random large boxes and just gallon barrels in there in front of the gas station. I don't know why I was blanking on that.
Yeah, there's that one long crate there behind the cast that would have been around about where the gas pumps were. And we know they sort of hung around for a while as well before being moved around beside the gas station, but we don't actually see around that backside of the gas station any of these shots, so it's a pity you can't see that window the rat to jump through. You can't see it in the office. Of course, it'd be completely stripped bare, but we do get a shot inside the garage in a minute. But I love here too, they sort of set off a automated target that pops up, and they sort of fire. Well, you see down the barrel of a gun as they're aiming at it and looking over at the kiln shed, but the way they're actually standing would be looking over at the front door of the boarding house. Is where they are. But we cut to a car and a Hummer driving through the gates, coming into the set, which just sort of shows how big those gates are.
I'm sure they were built for trucks to get in and out of, you know. And Hummers are especially wide vehicles, so like 8 feet wide. You know?
Yeah. But even sort of in Jurassic Park, the Jeeps aren't an overly large vehicle, being the two-door version. And even when sort of Ian and Kelly and that walk through as well, it's sort of, you don't really get that scale. But just having this Hummer drive through, and I was just going to say, and sort of as they drive through here, you can sort of look past them. They've just sort of completely whitewashed the scene, just so you can't see the Psycho house and that out there beyond that area. That's
I also like that when they drive through the gates, you can see the caution 10,000 volt sign. They pass it. I mean, it's so obvious.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, well, again, because we get a shot of them driving into the village, and then we cut inside the car as the sort of cameras mounted the car, and they drive through the gates again. And as you said, that 10,000 volt sign sitting there. And sort of like the wires are still strung on the fence and all that sort of stuff still there as well.
It's great because it's a nice single long shot that we get to see of all the way up to the kiln house, you know?
Yeah, and you see that sort of ribcage pipe structure come into the compound and then take a left and go over to a large, tower.
Yeah.
And then just past that again, you got the pipes coming up. They've got all the heat shrink and the heat shielding on them to whatever that structure is. And then, of course, you got the two big round towers that that you can easily see in the film. But again, too, just as they pass those two large round towers, you can see that roof that's behind the kiln shed, and on that kiln shed wall there, as they pass it. It still makes me think there's a veranda or something behind there. I'll fight that until I go to my grave. It's hard to see through the debris there, but But then as the car leaves, we get a good look at the boarding house as well. All the mould and the wood rot and that's sort of still there, and still seems to be largely intact from once the filming was done. But then again here too, as sort of we get a cut to the front of the boarding house where the actors sort of run across or around the front of the building where that veranda is. Again, you can see sort of large sections of the wall missing. And I just love that door, how it's got sort of the glass windows and some of them missing, the blinds hanging there as well. And just the mould. Like it sort of looks like it's wet, or like it was green paint or something just been thrown at the walls. Just the way it sort of looks like it's splattered onto the walls and actually grown. Grown on them. But then we cut inside the boarding house, sort of looking at the front now, where before we're at the rear, and again, not too much dressed inside, but it's sort of interesting how the weatherboards have got such large gaps between the timbers.
Well, I noticed that a similar thing when I was watching Pirates of the Caribbean the other night.
Yep.
In the blacksmith shop that Orlando Bloom works in, has a slated roof, and with the gaps in the roof, about like how that is. It's just slated planks with about like an inch gap in between each plank. And I'm thinking, they're in the tropics, they're in the Caribbean. What do they do when it rains? Because it's the tropics. It's the Caribbean.
It always rains.
It inevitably rains. Yes.
Yeah. Just look at the Jurassic films. It rains in every film.
Yeah, exactly.
They've got to make it happen, but it's just to make it look like the jungle. And it's interesting.
Well, even in the first film, they had to hurry up production just because a hurricane was coming. You know.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
And then they even actually used some of that footage of the hurricane coming in the movie. Like, the break wall, the Spielberg went up to the roof of the hotel as the hurricane was coming into the island and shot a shot of the break wall as the storms were hitting. As the storm The storm...
Storm surge.
What is that?
Storm surge.
Yeah, the storm surge was hitting you. Thanks. I was having a moment there.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, exactly. And I suppose you'll bring up the Pirates of the Caribbean. I'll raise you Jumanji. I was watching it before we recorded now, and there's a building, like, of course it's all set in Hawaii and that, where they were filming it, and I was watching the behind the scenes stuff from Real News as it was all getting shot over there, and interesting just being able to point out a couple of the scenes, like the where they land the helicopter is actually where the Tyrannosaur and Gyrosphere are when the volcano's exploding, that mountain range behind it. And just funny little stuff like that. Like we've said early on when we started the minutes, just how much Hawaii's probably getting overused, and you can see Gallimamas Valley standing out in other films and that. But they get to a transport depot, and again, a large wooden structure, much like the boarding house. And while they're in it, all the timbers again, just that inch gap or that sort of thing. There might be someone that lives in the tropics or in the South America or something that knows exactly why that is, because of course we're going for this is Costa Rica, so it'd be going for tropics and that sort of architecture, especially with like the tile roof and that. But yeah, it's just an interesting design. Even a lot of the behind the scenes stuff for the town, the rest of the buildings and that never got completed. We see the hotel that ended up in Trespasser, just a squat square 2-story building, much like the boarding house, but had the veranda all the way around it and just a weatherboard structure. The second segment in this last episode, we cut to the rear of the boarding house as the people sort of escape, come out a door up there. Well, I'm assuming there's a door up there, or they're coming from around the side of the building, but run down the stairs at the back to the rear of the boarding house. And again, the stairs sort of look like they're built fairly sturdy. So I wonder if this was just a fire escape for the set that was built stronger than the rest of the stuff because it had to be practical, or they just built stuff a bit better back then.
I'd say it's probably honestly a mixture of both.
Because even sort of a year later, as we know, the set's sort of built new, then aged up after the fact. So it's not as if they were using old rotted timber to build.
Actually, I just noticed that they used another Lost World location here. I'm skipping through the episode trying to find where the second part is. The village.
Yeah, it's 3826.
Oh, thanks. But yeah, they used the Spanish town on the Universal backlot, which was actually dressed up to be Kenya in the Roman tempo scene.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Interesting, because that sort of they do film a lot there as well across the series, but that sort of turns up in a lot of other films as well. Up in so much.
Yeah. It was in Zorro. It was even in what was that? The Big Fat Liar.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that one?
Yeah. No, I love that film.
Where they're in the final chase, where they're trying to get Marty Wolf, played by Paul Giamatti, they try to trap him at his own game, and they're running through the Spanish lot, and they turn on the water hose, and it kind of sweeps him up, sweeps Paul Giamatti off his feet, and he goes past a sign. It's a wooden sign. One arrow's pointing towards Isla Nublar, the other one's pointing towards Arizona. And I think there's more that points to Isla Mural, which would be the island of Dr. Mural.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if that signpost was in the Bubasa scene, because it's an active set or something. They've got there's sort of like a viaduct there that water can come down at a flick of a switch, and that's in Big Fat Lie. I love that too because they hold up in storage for props, and there's like the Velociraptor animatronic in there.
Jurassic Park 3 Velociraptor in there.
Yeah, yep. But it's sort of interesting, like how they have sort of a little Easter eggs like that signpost in there pointing to Isla Nublar. Because I remember with Mad Max on the lookout where he finds the truck, there's actually a signpost there as well pointing to different, and it's got Casablanca 2,100 kilometres this way, and like different movie titles. And that's 1982, so it's something that's been done for a little while. But
Yeah.
yeah, they sort of get to the bottom of the stairs here and run back past the boarding house, and that we don't get to see the rear of the kiln shed or anything there, unfortunately, and run down to the end of the perimeter fence, where the concrete ends, the last fence poles there, and you can see the cables zip tied and wired off to that last post. And there's this massive corrugated iron or corrugated type pipe here as well that is huge, like it's nearly as tall as the actors here running beside it as well.
Yeah, and that was that's an original piece of the set too. So
yeah.
that was I completely came in and redesigned the geothermal area when I actually came and examined the worker village for the map that I made. And it just changed from like basic square, that it was like a basic rectangle with some tubes on the top, and it turned into this whole convoluted kind of crisscross piping set piece, you know?
Yep. I'd love to see blueprints for it.
Blueprints for it would be amazing.
Yeah. Yep.
I first started out, I was working with crappy early DVD screen caps and Trespasser.
Yeah.
Those were my first two, like, really main sources.
Well, it's interesting the geothermal power plant never got into Trespasser.
Yeah, it is.
Because you got the kiln shed and the boarding, or a sort of altered version of the boarding house in there, but then a lot of things didn't get into Trespass. They didn't even get the water in there for under the operations building. There's just a hole.
Yeah, true.
Where the raptor gets stuck down. But as the heroes sort of start running through the geothermal plant, dodging and ducking, weaving through the pipes, it's just interesting. A lot more pipes went outside that fence than just the big skeletal one we've seen. It's just because the front of the fence was dressed with all the plantings. We never even seen them. Like there's some 4-inch and 6-inch pipes there that sort of run out over and through the fence as well. And we, as sort of again, as the villain takes cover behind a crate, you get to see that blazer in the background with the light pole across it again.
They have advanced technology, laser blasters, and Chevy Blazers.
Yeah.
Even 1980s era Chevy Blazers.
Yeah. Oh, even one shot here, he fires at him, and the explosion comes from behind the drum, not on the side that he's standing on. So the laser fire went around behind the drum, then exploded. But there's something very interesting that happens here. As the villain's sort of shooting at the heroes, he hits one of those pipes that runs outside, and steam or smoke starts to billow out of it. Now, of course, as we said before, it's not a practical, like it's not real steam pipes, but I just wonder if that's a little nod back to The Lost World.
I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that there's supposed to be steam pipes pumping steam up from underground, so I think it could be used for that purpose in any instance, you know?
Yeah, but I could see it just being, it could be a water treatment plant as well. It's just like, it's very similar piping. Yes, you haven't got the tank there that'd hold water, but I just thought it just seemed real weird that here they were, that was geothermal in The Lost World. Now, a year later when the set's being used again, that he shoots one of these pipes and steam comes billowing out of it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll also get a few more shots here too of the front of the operations building. Yeah, in daylight.
And it's funny that the kiln house is like a completely different color from the wood of the boarding house. It's like it's a closer color to the color of the operations building, that kind of light greenish beige. I don't even know what to call it, because it's like a moss-covered concrete color.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I noticed, even from the standing photos of the set that we see that people are taking of that backlot. Just, again, sort of the different in design and all that between the boarding house and the kiln shed. And just like you said, just as different colours and timber. Now, whether the boarding house had more aging, because we see here that at the front, like the back, there's some massive holes where whole sections of the boards have just been torn away by the wind. Which sort of makes me wonder too, in The Lost World all being filmed at night, the only light you see is coming from windows and not from any of these open sections.
Mm-hmm.
But that's normally on sets when they have windows lit. There's just a sort of a box inside the window, so you can't actually see into the building with a light in it, like a light box that goes over the windows. Because if there was lighting in the boarding house, it'd be shining beams of light everywhere, you'd imagine, just from all the holes and gaps in the timbers. But as the heroes go to leave, we get to have a good look here of the garage as well. The front of it without the cars.
Of course, no vehicles are left in it, unfortunately. But we do get a shot of just the back wall there, and looks like I'm not sure if there's if that's a window or if that's just like a reflection or something like that along the back wall there.
Yeah, it's sort of handy too, because the villain fires one of his laser shots in there and it lights up the whole area. And it looks like there's two rear windows that sort of look back behind. Because the only thing there's set photos of the compound being built, and the only real one we see at the back of the gas station, there's a sort of like a little side office there that's in the way.
And the funnier part still is that there's no windows in that spot that you can see from the outside.
Yeah. And like, it doesn't look like a roller door on the front. It only looks like a roller door over on that far left-hand wall that would go into or behind the office. So
yeah, I get you.
It'd be good just to see those vehicles parked in there, but they obviously went back to the dump. But yeah, no Suburban. And when they're here too, just after that, where we get the other villains turn up, there's a little wooden structure that's here with all these crates. We talked off microphone after the possibility of being an underground geothermal area. There's a little squat building that's sort of in the film. It's beside the geothermal power plant. It really looks like an outhouse, just a small wooden shed that's there beside the piping, and it looks like it's sort of here in the main street along with the crates and that. But again, it might have been just they've sort of gathered all the larger debris and crates and stuff and just stacked it all up in the main street. But see, I love you too. Even though the plantings have been removed, there's still that tree that's growing at the base of the stairs for the boarding house for the second story. It's there blocking the staircase in the Lost World. It's here blocking the staircase now. It's like they've just planted a tree there so no one can walk up those steps because they'll fall through them. They've been made so rickety.
They very well might have, actually.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, they can't have a little do not pass the red rope sign while they're filming.
Yeah, really.
But yeah, that's Sliders. Anything else on that final episode you want to talk about?
No, not really. I think we did pretty well.
Yeah, so they're the 3 episodes of Sliders that shot on the backlot. We don't get to see the backlot again until they went out there and revamped it for Jurassic Park 3. Gone was the rest of the village. They just sort of redressed the face and the roof of the operations building into that embryonics administration building.
And then they CG'd out that dome cage and the helipad.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one thing that sort of throws a lot of people off when they see that in the film. Because that helipad being and we'll get to it when we get to 95, being a active helipad had to be strong, built of steel.
Yeah, it was. It's like the only part of the entire thing that's still standing.
Yeah, and
besides the dome. Actually.
Yeah,
that
the
mystery
supports.
Dome. It's like that mystery dome is just taunting us. I'm going to stay here forever.
What are you?
To taunt you.
But it's sort of weird, like the substructures there, the poles there, and the platforms there on top of the tower. But then whatever that cage and antenna or whatever it was on the top that we'll talk about again in 95 as well is gone.
Yeah.
It's just weird how they sort of pull some parts of sets apart and just leave the others. Like, if they're going to start dismantling the embryonics building, why is the rest of it left there? But if they're going to, like here now, they probably, the production company for site has saved some money by being able to film on the backlot. If future movies can sort of film on the backlot as well and not be hindered by having to build new sets and that.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of disappointing that this is the only film, or the only thing that we know of that filmed there. I brought up found a list of movies that were in production probably 6 months before and 6 months after The Lost World, and apart from I can't remember what the list was now, it's been a while. There's a couple of films there that possibly might have, but and some I've got on DVD, I'd have to look. I've got a couple of the films on DVD that were in production around the same time that might have used the backlot as well, but
I see.
I'm even now, after being so long, I think if any other films had come out using the set, we would have known about it by now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So.
Oh, plus, I mean, we Jurassic Park fans are so good at, I mean, we just look for our fandom in anything.
Well, yeah, like 4.5 hours of watching home vacation videos on YouTube trying to find those bloody construction vehicles on the backlot.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's Sliders. Next week we'll be back with 95 and 96, where we leave the village, get to take a look at the tranquilized Tyrannosaur and head for San Diego.
All right.